Hey guys, welcome back to our Java programming tutorial. Um, this is where we left off last time. We've just written our first line of code. Um, so what we're going to do today is we'll talk about variables. What are variables? Variables are um, the most basic ways to save data. There are different kinds of data, and the primitive data types we will work with from the beginning. Um, can and will all be saved into simple variables. Why exactly do we need variables? Well, we want to be able to save and also manipulate data. And in order to be able to manipulate data, we'll need to have some kind of access. And variables, they give us the possibility to define, so to speak, define a variable under a certain name. Um, and then we can later on we can access it and change it and manipulate the data in it. And every programming language features variables, and they're basically the most basic structure that programming languages have. Um, and so I'm going to show you how to define variables, how to work with variables, how to manipulate the data in it, and how to read the data from them. And so let's just go ahead and go into our basic package over here, which we created last time. And we'll create a new class up here, and we will call it variables. Uh, Make sure it's an uppercase letter. And you could tick the box public static void main, which will then create a main method for you. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do it manually. So we got our public class, which basically is the file, and it's inside the package we created. That's alright. And then we create our main method, public static void main, and the usual stuff. And we don't really, as I said last time, we don't really have to understand what we're doing here right now. Um, we'll talk about that later. Let's just get started. Um, so um, variables um, will first have to be declared, and we do that by well, the basic structure of declaring variables is always the same. It starts with the data type, and then we'll give it a name, um, which is, for example, yeah, it's a name, right? And every line in Java, as I already said, will end with a semicolon. Um, so this is the basic structure, and it's always the same. And of course, we want to maybe give it a certain value, which is called initializing. So we have the name of the variable, which is linked to a certain data type, so we could enter values into the variable, which can all be of the specified data type. Um, so to do that, um, we will um, kind of access the variable by typing its name, and then we'll put an equals here, and for example, well, it's the value we want, and a semicolon. So the equals in programming languages is usually different from what you know. The equals doesn't, well, of course it means, in this context, it means we, we set name equal to a value. But what it basically means is we save the value inside the variable. So when later on we want to compare values, you can't use the equals operator. But we'll get to that later. So of course, Eclipse will give you some errors here because this isn't viable code. It's just a generalized example, but we'll just leave it at the top of here in order to be able to look at it later on. So what I did here is those two slashes are comments in Java. It's always good practice to comment the code you write. So whenever I write a function, a method, a variable, and it's not imminently clear what exactly it does to others, or even if it probably is, we should always put a comment on it. And that can be done by putting those two slashes there. We can also put a slash and this asterisk here, and then we have multi-line comments which end like this, but we don't need it right now. So what we're going to do today, or what we're going to do now, is declare a variable, and there are different data types, as I already said, and the basic, well, the data type we'll start with is an integer, which is a number without anything behind a decimal separator. So, for example, 3, 4, 5, 2,332,323. It's limited to a certain length, but, well, that doesn't concern us yet. What we do have to keep in mind is that an integer is a number. If we want to use something after the decimal separator, we want a double, which looks like this. And these are the basic data types we work with today. So we'll just start by declaring a variable. So a variable, we want an integer, and we'll call it our first number. And note that the variable names usually start with a lowercase letter in Java. Okay, so now that we got our first number, we'll be able to save a value in it. And we'll just put 65 in there. And then we'll end the line, and then we're done. Let's just save another number. That's our second number. And our second number will be 23. Now you could also initialize a variable instantly. So we don't need two separate lines to declare and then initialize a value of a variable. We could do that in one line. So our third number will look like this. So you see what we did? Kind of, you can see that this is like a little redundant. We have our second number here, we have there. Why not put it in one line? And yeah, that's possible. And you would probably do that a lot because, well, if you use more complex data types later on, you might want to go like this because there will be more data in there and more information, and in order to get a good overview, it's sometimes good practice to do it in two lines, but you will most of the time you'll basically work like this. And why don't we also create a double, which will be our first double, namely 3.4. Okay, so of course now we got variables and they have values in them. But what do we do? Well, we can do calculations, arithmetics. But well, of course we could say our first number plus our second number and and let's just correct it here. And well, yeah, it does work. Why? Because well, what do you do with it? Nothing. What we do need is we also need an integer for a result. And then we can say result is our first number plus our second number. And then we got a result, which is saved into a variable. And last time we worked like this, which is system of print line, which is system output, and we put some text in here. Yeah, but we can also we cannot also put we can only put text in there. We can also create an output for integer and other variable values. And what it basically does is whatever we put in here will be printed out there. So let's just say we want to see what our result is. Well, if you ever look at it, 65 plus 23, that's 88. And when we start that, we see the result is 88. So we can also create a second result, which will then be, let's say we take our first number, 65, and we add our first double. So some of you may know this doesn't work, right? Why? What does Eclipse tell us? Well, we cannot convert from double to int. Right, so what it tries to do here is it sees this is a double value and we want to save it into an integer variable, and so it tries to convert it, but it's in this case it's smart enough to know that well, we can't convert it without losing some information, so it creates an error. And how to work with that or fix that, we will see next time. I hope you liked it, and I hope you have a good grasp now of how variables work and what basic data types you could use to work with. And make sure to give me some feedback, and tune in next time when we will do more complex calculations, more complex output, and work with more data types. Thanks for watching.